What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Match Dads podcast here on the Old Cranky Man Collectibles channel. My name is Rugley, joined here today by my co-host Pinty Het and special guest Jake Scott. What is up, dudes?
Jake,
hello.
You're here.
We've done it.
That was not planned.
Oh my gosh.
Oh, that was super sweet.
Very excited to have you on today, man.
Yeah, second time. You are a returning guest.
Yeah.
Look at that.
Again, talking about a deck that I would not say is one of the ones I'm known for, but it is also extremely sweet. So
I don't know. It's very sweet, and you've had some success with it. So the deck that we're going to talk about today is Time Walk Tempo in Canadian Highlander, and this is a bit of a divergence from your typical Jeskai deck in Canadian Highlander. So it plays a little bit more like aggressive style creatures, and then uses a point spread of Time Walk +4. Time Walk, a fair Time Walk. Which is something
fair Spellseeker, fair Time Walk.
Fair Spellseeker, fair Time Walk. Yeah, just trying to get that one extra turn so you can attack them with your Mantis Riders. I'm giving all the spoilers for the cool cards that are in the deck. So yeah, you've had some success with this. Top 8'd 2 tournaments now with slightly different renditions of this deck. In addition to those 2 top 8s, you have 5 lifetime Lawnlander qualifier top 8s and 1 win.
Yeah.
So
occasionally I'm good at Magic.
Certainly have
I would say it happens more often than not.
So you've had a lot of success in the format and a lot of success with this deck. So Jake, please tell me, what is Time Walk Tempo?
Yeah. So Time Walk Tempo is it's pretty similar to your standard Jeskai midrange list, but with a couple changes that I think make really big impacts on the way that it plays. So the number one thing that you're going to notice is we're playing Time Walk instead of Ancestral Recall.
Yep.
And you might be saying, but hey, isn't Recall like the best card ever printed? And I'm going to tell you, yeah, actually.
Yeah.
There's a reason that I call this deck Bad Jeskai, because taking Recall out of the deck makes a lot of things a lot harder. But the reason that I think you might want to play this is because Recall is 8 points.
Yeah.
So you are cutting yourself off from a lot of other powerful cards by playing Recall.
Recall almost seems like 9 because like everybody always plays Mystical Tutor. So like you're immediately going 8 and 9 Mystical Tutor and Ancestral Recall.
Yeah. And you know, that 10th point is, some people do interesting things with it. Usually it's just going to be like a Treasure Cruise for an additional Recall. So Time Walk Tempo is my way of saying, well, I can already play one bad Recall. I can just play the Treasure Cruise and then also have a Time Walk and a Spellseeker and whatever other good stuff I wanted.
Have fun.
This feels like the
with
true
those
intention.
Jeskai points.
Like this is one of the big reasons I feel like they reduced the points on Time Walk so that people weren't priced into playing it as their sole game plan in the deck. Like it's powerful enough to be 6 points. It sort of has to be.
Yeah.
But it doesn't need to be your full game plan, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And that's one of the things that I tried to do with this build of the deck is I want to have a full game plan that doesn't revolve around my pointed cards necessarily, but then just they can push it over the top.
Yeah.
Sick. All right, I'm going to pull the deck list up on the screen now for everybody at home, and we will just go through this one card at a time, starting at the top with Teferi Time Raveler and Comet Stellar Pup.
Yeah. So only on 2 planeswalkers. There are some Jeskai lists, like some of the more controlling ones, that'll also play like the Wandering Emperor.
Yep.
Or sometimes they'll even go up to Jace the Mind Sculptor.
Yep.
Sort of not seen as much anymore.
Unfortunately. I have a soft spot for Jace. But yeah, just playing the 2 most busted Jeskai walkers.
Yeah, like using those slots more as threats and cutting some of the other ones to allow you to play more creatures, right?
Right. Yeah. Teferi, you kind of got to play it because it just shuts down an entire avenue of the game. And Comet, I have a lot of complicated feelings about Comet.
Oh boy.
I do not like the card, generally speaking, but it's really, really powerful.
It's insane. Yeah.
So it's hard to say no to a card that just sometimes will come down and deal 17 damage to your opponent. And,
with no real way to interact with it.
Yeah. So
it's not. Blake and I sort of had lots of discussions on air about this, and I haven't met a person yet who has played with or against the card that comes away from it feeling good about it. Kind of icky.
Yeah. Either it's going to hit the table and it's going to win the game all on its own, in which case, all right, well, I'm glad I got to show up to let Comet do his thing, or he's going to hit the table and try to return a card from my graveyard when it's empty, and then I die because my stupid 4-mana Planeswalker didn't do anything.
Oh,
boy, howdy.
He's still a good boy. Okay, let's move on to the creatures. There are 22 of them in here. Just 3 1-drops. You've got a Dragon's Rage Channeler, a Ragavan Nimble Pilferer, and a Tameo Inquisitive Student. Let's talk about this Tameo. It was one of the most played Modern Horizons 3 cards in this tournament, and I haven't heard a whole lot of feedback about that. So tell me about Tameo.
Oh, I love Tameo so much. It's a 1-mana card that blocks Ragavan, which is that passes the bar for entry. It just does so many things that are so good in Jeskai, just giving you a threat early in the game that you can then worry about protecting or focus on killing their creatures, and it's just going to sit there and accrue value for you. Giving you the clues to give you something to do with your mana when your opponent doesn't cast a spell you need to counter, huge. And on the backside, it's also incredible. You in the intro, you mentioned maybe just casting 1 Time Walk, and Tameo's in there because sometimes you need not infinite Time Walks, but just 2. I'm gonna cast it. I'm gonna get it back with Tameo. I'm gonna cast it again next turn, and then
have you had a chance? Have you had a chance to do that yet, or?
Yeah,
you did get to do that. That's crazy.
I was playing against Joe a couple tournaments ago. He was on Black-White Death and Taxes, and I actually got to flip a Tameo, cast Time Walk so that I could then uptick and then downtick Tameo in order to get the Time Walk back, and then put it back on top of my library with a Mystic Sanctuary.
Neat. Good game.
Getting to take a bunch of turns in a row when you've got a Seasoned Engineer on the battlefield, that'll just end the game.
Yeah,
get a bonus draw step to take.
Yeah, that's insane. I really like that play pattern of ticking it up and then so you can tick it back down again and get the Time Walk back.
There's like 2 things in our format specifically that make Tameo better. One is that we have access to Brainstorm, which is obviously like instant speed flip. The other is that Karn the Great Creator doesn't see a lot of play. And Karn TCG being able to shut down the clues that Tameo makes in 60 card constructed is sort of one of the biggest avenues of attack on her. And that just doesn't really seal, just because Karn's minus ability doesn't do anything.
Yeah. I will say one of the things that I like about Tameo is it is a card that does a lot and it's all very powerful, but it does force me to play more. Like, I have to consider my plays a lot harder because that transform ability is not a May. If you draw three cards in a turn, she is going to flip.
Gotcha.
And that has come back to bite me a couple times when I cast a cantrip on my turn and then I take the Monarchy and go to my end step and now Tameo flips and
now she
I don't get to tick her up.
Yeah. Oh no. Yeah, that feels like a corner case, man. Yeah. You got to dig to find the bad part of this card.
It is something that I did not realize though. So you know, that kind of thing could happen to me. So I appreciate you letting me know. Nick's card is another Modern Horizons 3 card. This card was actually the most played Modern Horizons 3 card in this tournament. It is a Johnny Nakatl Pariah.
Mm-hmm. Insane. 2 mana for a 3/3 worth of stats. That's not a thing that a Jeskai deck is supposed to get. And then it's almost trivially easy to get him to flip.
Yeah.
Just throw your creature at your opponent, and eventually they have to block, or you get to block, or sometimes your opponent goes to kill your Ajani, and you get to bolt your own cat token in response to flip him instead.
Notably, that his trigger is a May.
It is. If you really want to keep a 1/2 on the battlefield, you're allowed.
I think that there's play patterns where you're like, you want to keep it as a creature to Caracas it and replay it to get the bonus creatures, especially if you have a Caracas and a Johnny. Like, that's insane. Like, that's value.
Yeah, there's absolutely a lot more times when you would want to keep a Johnny on the battlefield than a Tameo. You're not getting a lot of value for Caracasing your Tameo back to your hand. But yeah.
Fair enough.
A Johnny's just
Johnny's
very
great.
good. That's sort of like the
Planeswalker.
consensus. Yeah.
Next up, Dreadhorde Arcanist. This card is one of the cards that you almost always see in the Ancestral Recall versions of this deck because it recasts Ancestral Recall as well as, you know, half of the rest of the deck, but importantly, Recall.
Yes. Yeah. It and Snapcaster Mage both fall into the camp of they get worse when you can't snap back a recall, but it's Dreadhorde Arcanist, I think, becomes more important because when you don't have Ancestral Recall to rely on to get your card advantage, you have to find better ways, other ways to eke out that advantage. So a way to flashback your spells consistently is super, super valuable.
Yeah, Dreadhorde Arcanist is absolutely insane with the 1-mana spells, no matter what they are, even if they're not drawing you cards. If it's just a removal spell, I mean, you just turned your 1-for-1 removal spell into a 2-for-1, and maybe they're taking a damage. Snapcaster Mage, of course, another staple for these Jeskai decks. Brazen Borrower, it's an extremely versatile removal spell. That also doubles as a creature with evasion. And now we come to Mantis Rider. And so Mantis Rider, you know, that is, he attack, he protect.
You do protect.
Tell me about Mantis Rider and why I think that's one of the most important cards in this deck.
Card rules. Card is a 3-mana thing that does basically everything that you want it to. Like you said, he attack, he protect. The ability to, like, if your opponent plays a White Plume Adventurer, you can match that with a Mantis Rider. You can take that initiative, and then you still have it up to block.
It's the kryptonite to a lot of initiative decks is this one card.
One of the big reasons that I wanted to play Time Walk Tempo in our meta is we have a lot of board-based decks. A lot of people are playing just good creatures. People are not afraid to introduce the initiative. And one of the things that I struggle with when I'm playing decks in general is finding a way to close out the game. And so I wanted to bring a deck that has more creatures so that you can kind of, you know, match them on the board easier. And when you get into a situation where you need to turn the corner and end the game, I want to be able to do that very efficiently. And just getting to play a Mantis Rider and start beating down that same turn, it's just really good.
You get the benefit. You get the benefit of having a lot of these creatures that do that also have the ability to be spells or abilities sort of tacked onto them, which gives Jeskai just so much more modality.
There is a lot of modality built into many of these cards.
The 3 drops in this deck are really important because 3 is where you start to get creatures that are big enough that they can actually end a game pretty quickly.
Yeah.
But it's also still cheap enough that you can theoretically cast one and then hold up a removal spell or a counter spell or something, so you are not entirely shields down.
Right. Right. Next up is another Modern Horizons 3 card. It's Flage, Titan of Fire's Fury. By we I mean me, I have spent quite a bit of time talking about this card on this podcast. It is like exactly the kind of card that the slower Jeskai decks want, because it comes down early and can kill something, and then it sits in your graveyard and waits for the right time to come back, and it ends the game super duper quickly when you cast it the second time. So, I mean, that being said, I'm sure that your deck, which is a little bit faster than the typical Jeskai deck, it's just like supercharged, ready to go. Yes, it still does all of the things that I said, but also you're attacking me with a Mantis Rider at the same time, which somehow makes it so much worse.
yeah, card does everything you want it to.
It's so weird that they keep printing blue cards with red and white pips on them and no blue pips.
But like, yeah, I am playing blue. I will find a way to cast a Flage. That's fine.
Yeah.
Yeah, Flage is super sick. Next up is the first pointed card that we've come to. It's Spellseeker. So we talked a little bit earlier about how this is a fair Spellseeker deck. And so there is a well-known Canadian Highlander deck. In fact, if you're curious about it, there's a video up on the channel about it. It's called What is Seeker Walk? So Seeker Walk is a mid-range Bant or 4-color deck that features an infinite loop involving Spellseeker, a Ephemerate, and like a Eternal Witness style effect with it to take infinite turns with Time Walk.
Yeah.
So that's an unfair Spellseeker. This we're calling a fair Spellseeker because there is no infinite loop. But Jake, you did talk about an insane string that involved Spellseeker, Tamio, and the Mystic Sanctuary. So it's not like, you only plan on casting Time Walk once. It's that casting Time Walk 4 times is probably good enough.
And like, if you're gonna give me the option to take 4 turns in a row, I'm gonna take it. But no, most of the time,
Take it. You mean take them?
Yes. Yeah. It is fair. Spellseeker is just. It turns Time Walk into a time warp. It's just 5 mana, take an extra turn if that's what I need at the moment. I'm not 100% sure that Spellseeker is the correct card for the slot. One of the things I want to try out is switching it out for Mystical Tutor, which is the classic thing that would go in this spot.
Card previously mentioned on episode.
Yeah. The reason that I went with Spellseeker is the 2 big advantages it has are putting the card directly into your hand.
Yep.
Which it is more direct card advantage than a Mystical Tutor. And like I mentioned before, when you don't have recall, you have to find card advantage in other ways. And I also like that Spellseeker is a creature, which means that this is a way for me to find my whatever I need, and then also I can just throw it under a bus if I need to.
Yeah, that is a really nice thing that Mystical. That's a really nice thing that Mystical Tutor doesn't usually do. Next up is Tishana's Tidebinder. This is the the classic tempo card. You see this card in most of these decks. It has haste for blockers, and then it also can turn off powerful things like Comet Stellar Pup, Minsc and Boo, the One Ring, as well as
Initiative,
a number of other things. Yeah,
it's sort of an all-seeing, all-dancing. Like Stifle is good. Tishana's Sidebinder is better because it has a power on it. It's sort of the same thing as Spellseeker, where you can't attack or block with a Stifle. You can attack or block with this guy.
Right.
It's good.
Yeah. And in this case, I get to do both.
Yeah.
I got a Stifle in here as well. We'll get to that later.
Yeah.
That's the sound that you make when I stifle your fetch land.
No, he stifled my Monarch trigger.
Oh, that was fun.
Mhm.
I won that game. Next up is another pointed card. It's True Name Nemesis. So this is one of the cards that we talked about quite a bit in last week's episode of the podcast when we were talking about the points panel survey. So a lot of people think that True Name Nemesis should be 0 points. How do you feel about that, Jake?
I think I'm a big fan of pointing the enablers for busted strategies rather than like necessarily the threats. I feel like True Name Nemesis is maybe a threat that should still have a point attached to it, though.
You think so?
Like it is just so hard to interact with. It's just gonna come down and it's gonna block forever. And sure, there's questing beast, there's bone crusher giant, there's things you can do to work around a True Name Nemesis being on the field.
You named both of them. That's it.
Yeah. I feel like True Name should still be a point. It just I'm playing it because it is a way that I can slam a threat and be very, very confident that it's going to be able to get in for damage every turn. It's just a guarantee, and that's it's so good.
If it was 0 points, I feel like it would just go in every blue deck.
Next up is a personal favorite of mine, Vendilion Click.
The Clique.
Yeah. Cards.
Again, it's another classic Jeskai card.
Yeah.
Spell attached to a body.
Flash threats are great. Getting to look at your opponent's hand, even if you don't take anything, super powerful. Getting to put my own garbage cards on the bottom if I don't want them. It comes up.
Having perfect information is so valuable to Jeskai that oftentimes, especially when you get to three or more mana, you'll cast a Clique, look at their hand, and just go, "Okay, I have the cards to deal with this. It's fine."
Yep.
Yeah, that is one of the most threatening things to see across the table. Opponent looks at your sweet 5-card hand and says, "Yeah, that's fine."
Well, it's the same thing as like when Jason Mind Sculptor was getting play. Like once they started getting the loyalty high enough, and they would start fate sealing you and look at the card.
Yeah, you're like, all right, cool. Yes, we're probably done here. Let's scoop us up.
Yeah, the game is pretty much over at that point. And Click, you get to rebuy with Caracas and recast every turn. Zoe did that to me. That was not fun.
It's Caracas proof.
Yeah.
Kind of.
Yeah. Opponents never want to. It's like Caracasing a Nadu, man. You just don't want to do that.
It doesn't feel good, but like I do also want to attack with my 3/1 flyer.
Yeah, sure.
I have had to Caracas and a Johnny before. It doesn't feel good.
Ooh.
Next up and last of the 3 drops, it's White Plume Adventurer. No surprises here.
Yep.
Just good, old, fun Magic cards.
This was a card that was also, so speaking of the points list change, how would you feel about this card going to a point?
I think that's a great thing to do.
So compare it to True Name Nemesis.
Yeah. Give that comparison.
The True Name Nemesis, it comes down. It's going to be hard to interact with. It's probably going to end the game. White Plume Adventurer comes down early enough with so little investment. Like, you play a Mana Dork on turn 1, and then you can play your White Plume on turn 2, and now you've introduced a card that if they don't have an answer to it is going to end the game, and if they do have an answer to it, you can play it early enough in the game that they probably don't have also a board state to then take the initiative, and then you have the initiative, so
they can kill it all they want. Yeah. The lingering effect is there. Notably, Jake, you are a classic like Naya player,
yes.
And so you have experience with those play patterns of like turn 1 Mana Dork, turn 2 White Plume.
And the game is. That's where the card needs to be pointed. Specifically for Jeskai, I don't think the card needs a point. I think introducing the initiative feels pretty bad a lot of the time.
Now hold on here. I'm the one who's asking the questions, and I was planning on bringing that up. No, sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
It just this is a deck that, even though I am playing a slightly more board focused version of the deck, like I'm not going to have those games where I'm going, creature on turn 1, creature on turn 2, creature on turn 3. So anytime that I am the one introducing the initiative, it's very tenuous. Like if they have 2 removal spells, okay, my thing's dead, and now you've gotten in for damage, and I have given you a huge advantage in the game.
You did this to yourself, yes.
Exactly.
There is that thing where like a lot of newer players will look at cards that they see as non-bows in decks, and they'll go, well, why are you running this? And the answer is that you're not required to cast a spell from your hand.
Mm-hmm.
You can just hold if the board position is not appropriate for it. You, especially as a Jeskai player, you can just wait until the board position is correct for it, or you can find a way to pitch it for another card oftentimes.
Yeah, there are other uses for it. I will say, again, having worse card advantage means that
you got to make up for it somehow.
Yeah, and having a white plume sit in my hand because I never have a good spot to resolve it, that is a thing that happens, and it feels real bad.
Yeah, Solitude's always there to eat a white card.
Next up is actually one of my favorite cards from the Lord of the Rings set. It's Aragorn, King of Gondor.
Card's gross.
This card is like the Jeskai boogeyman, I think, except for, well, I'm a big fan of the next card in the deck as well. But you have, let's see, is it just these 2 legendary Jeskai creatures? Yeah.
Looks to be.
Yeah, it's just these 2. So we talked for a long time about who your deck's final boss is, and I think Aragorn, King of Gondor, is this deck's final boss for sure.
Yeah, I think I could agree with that. So the 4-drops are they're getting up there. They're kind of pricey. Whereas with the 3-drops, you can kind of find a spot where you can play it and then hold up interaction. I find a lot of the time I'm casting a 4-drop and all I've got is hope.
No.
when you slam an Aragorn and your opponent doesn't have an answer for it immediately, very few things in this deck feel better.
Yeah, 4 toughness is very important.
Excellent. Love to hear that.
Big. It attacks, it blocks. They can't ever block it. You're drawing extra cards. It is the encapsulation of everything I want when I'm playing this deck.
Perfect.
Yeah, that last line of text on it, I hate that.
Yeah.
If you're the monarch, creatures can't block this turn. That's not an okay line of text. Like to be clear, this card has dropped off in play for Jeskai recently. I think it's still very good. It saw a lot more play when it was like the Jeskai green, like the greedy Jeskai green decks, Spearmint Jeskai. Yeah. That being said, I think it is still absolutely correct and appropriate to play it in these decks because people are still playing Palace Jailer. And guess what's really cool and good? It's to get your creature back from a Palace Jailer monarch at the same time that you cast your 4/4 Vigilance lifelink creature that can't be blocked.
Yeah.
It's certainly a liability that a lot of people don't consider when they put Palace Jailer in their deck.
Yeah. I feel like Palace Jailer is one of, like, there's only a couple ways that people are introducing the monarchy anymore. Back when we got Conspiracy and everyone was running, a couple ways in their deck, because now you've got a way to get card advantage in your creature deck. Then Palace Jailer, it was like kind of a liability, and that has dropped off pretty significantly.
Yeah. I think there was Palace Jailer was the big one, and then there was Custody Lich, which is the 5-mana black creature. Don't play that one.
Yeah. He's got extra text on him, but he's also a 5-mana 3 toughness creature.
Yeah, he dies very easily, and then his text doesn't matter once dead.
Yeah.
Okay, next up is Satya Aetherflux Genius. I don't know if we have ever talked about this card on the podcast before, Stefan, have we?
I think we have.
Okay,
We talked about it when we were going over MH3 stuff.
I have not actually had a chance to do the play pattern that I'm about to speak of, but this is the exact kind of deck that I would want to do it in. So I just want to curve White Plume Adventurer into Satya. Because that sounds insane. Just speed run the dungeon, untap things. Yeah, that's exactly what I want to do. So this guy is a 3/5 with Menace and Haste, and he has this ability that lets you pay energy, which he also makes, to copy creatures that you control. You do not have to have the energy to do that. He copies the creature and then use the energy to keep the token around at the end of the turn. So, yeah, card is bananas. Jake, tell me about how you feel about Satya.
You're right. Card is bananas. He's only hit the table a couple times for me, but every single time I cast him, it's backbreaking. My favorite thing I've gotten to copy with him, I will agree, copying a White Plume Adventure, pretty sweet. You ever copied a True Name Nemesis?
I was just gonna say, yeah, True Name Nemesis is also a very gassed up thing to copy with Satya.
Just a card.
You had resigned yourself to taking 3 this turn. What if instead I said you take 9?
Because the creature, the token comes in tapped and attacking, right?
Yes.
Yeah. That's sure. Why not? And this card already has Menace, so it's already basically impossible to block.
Yeah. And getting to come down and attack immediately, even if they have a way to block it, probably fine. I'm going to get some good enter the battlefield effect off of it.
Yeah, I was kind of going through that. Like, if you copy in a Johnny, then you get the new Ajani. It sees the Ajani that you copied die and flips.
Yes.
Yeah, that sounds right.
You can copy any of your. You can copy a Snapcaster Mage to get those triggers. You can copy a Spellseeker to get another instant of sorcery, a Flage if you want to get spicy, because you still get the ETB trigger even before state-based actions. Tidebinder can cancel something. Cleek lets you look at their hand.
Hey man, copying Triumph of St. Catherine sounds pretty sick.
Sure, even Triumph is good. And then obviously there's Subtlety, Fury, Solitude.
Yeah,
those are okay.
Yeah,
we'll get to those, but yeah, that's
plenty of stuff to copy with Satya. Yeah, card seems very, very sick. Seasoned Dungeoneer, another one of these shocking. I think was it white. So white was the most played color in the tournament. And then the top 5 cards were like Karakas, Wasteland, Solitude, Path to Exile, and Swords of Plowshares. And then I think the Nyx card that didn't actually make it onto the slideshow was Seasoned Dungeoneer. Yeah. So white. It was a white dominated tournament, and for good reason.
Oh, Johnny also.
Yes.
Yeah, the Seasoned Dungeoneer is another initiative card that I think Blake and I kind of looked at each other and were like, if this one ate a point also, it wouldn't, like, I wouldn't be sad about it.
I feel like...
Yeah, I think 4 is probably okay.
Yeah. You have to put in a lot more work to get a Seasoned Dungeoneer on the field on turn 2. Like, the introducing the initiative on turn 3 or turn 4 is a lot easier for most decks to deal with.
Yeah, I will say that the play patterns are a lot grosser with Seasoned Dungeoneer.
Oh,
because you trade it, like with a with a White Plume, it's about keeping it. With Seasoned Dungeoneer, it's about trading it. You don't care if they take it because you're getting it back.
Yeah. And I think a game where the players are trading the initiative back and forth is,
I suppose that's
a lot more. It's a lot healthier of a play pattern than what you see with a White Plume Adventurer.
I agree.
We already mentioned the trifecta. That is Subtlety, Fury, and Solitude. All of the free elemental incarnations from Modern Horizons 2. Each one of them good enough. But I will say Subtlety is one that I believe a lot of people sleep on. And my experience with this card have been that it is insane.
I've seen more and more people include it in their lists. I think it's in all 3 of the Jeskai lists that made top 8.
I think, I mean, it's another 3-power flyer. It is a way that you can end the game while also disrupting your opponent. It is the one I am least happy to pitch a card to cast, because it's just I need ways that I can actually affect the board, and so I do want to use this as a 4-mana spell more often than not.
Yeah.
It's a better body too. A 3/3 flyer with flash is very good.
Yeah, in those situations, like, it's effectively a time walk.
Yeah.
When you're pitch casting it like early in the game, it's effectively just a time walk, which is like giving up 2 cards for it is the opposite of what you want to do when you're so hungry for card advantage. But sometimes it just needs to be done.
Sometimes you gotta. Sometimes your opponent's trying to resolve a comet and you need to subtlety it.
Yeah,
or Minsk and Boo.
The times I find myself evoking it are when my opponent has insane mock starts and they play something crazy on like turn 2, and I'm like looking at 2-mana counter magic and I have 1 land in play, and I'm like, okay, I can subtlety this now. I have to give up a card, but next turn I'm going to play my land, and then I can use my 2-mana counter magic to deal with the card permanently.
Yeah, it also it's really good against delve threats like Murktide, where they basically utilize single use resources to cast, and then you're like, okay, I'm gonna clock you back quite a bit. Yeah, very, very good card.
Yeah, absolutely.
Triumph of St. Catherine. So when we played in the top 8 of the Cedar Rapids tournament, you had this Triumph of St. Catherine that gave me problems for a bunch of turns.
It's certainly the most annoying threat in the deck.
Yeah.
Because you can never. I mean, sure, you can if you have a way to exile it, it's gone forever. But not every deck is going to have that, which means they are just consigned to. This might be a 5/5 that I have to kill every other turn for the rest of the game.
Yeah.
And boy, the lifelink on it is just so relevant.
Right? Especially if you're miracling it over and over again. It's a 5-mana lifelinker for. It's a 5/5 lifelinker for 2 mana.
It allows it resets itself for that miracle cost, which is like very on brand for the Triumph of St. Catherine anyway. Like if you know anything about Warhammer.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Before we move on, I do want to mention I think my favorite play pattern that I've gotten to do with this deck is end of my opponent's turn 3 brainstorm to set up a Triumph, and then play my land and time walk so I can attack with it immediately.
That was me.
Was that against you?
Yeah, you did that to me.
It's great. It's cool.
I won that game.
I don't care, dude. That's fine. I got to cast a 2-mana 5/5 and then time walk. What more could you possibly want?
Do what you must. I have already won.
Okay, last creature in the deck is Homeboy Murktide Regent. Again, a Jeskai card you simply cannot leave home without.
Yeah.
Yep.
So moving on to the sorceries, you have a whole bunch of what I call the premium removal in the format. You've got Chain Lightning, of course, Flame Slash, Prismatic Ending, and then you've also got a Wrath of the Skies, which is a card that I have been extremely impressed with. It's a Pernicious Deed. It's a sorcery, but it's a Pernicious Deed. I have done like very disgusting things to this against opponents with Urza Sagas and Moxen and Soul Rings in their deck. I've killed Umezawa's Jite with this card a couple of times, in addition to several other permanents. Like, the card is almost always a 4-for-1, if not more than that. It seriously probably the most powerful card I think that's been given to these Jeskai decks in recent memory.
It's just so flexible.
Yeah.
It feels like it's like if you have Terminus or have access to Terminus, you don't necessarily need it if you have Wrath of Skies now.
Yeah, one of the reasons I felt good about swapping out the Mystical Tutor and the Terminus is because I've got a Spellseeker that can go get me a Wrath of the Skies.
Yeah, that's another added bonus to your deck specifically that the other Jeskai decks don't usually have, is that line that you just talked about right there.
And if I'm on 5 mana, but my opponent's got like they play a couple mocks in or whatever, I can just Spellseeker, grab the Wrath of the Skies, cast it X=0, and just... Yeah, I played this 3-mana creature that also blew up a couple of your lands. That seems fine to me.
Yeah, 100%. And then you've got a Brotherhood's End in here, which I feel like is a little bit of a metagame call. I have one of my favorite things about that card and your deck specifically is that you have these 4 toughness and 5 toughness creatures, and so you can play the Brotherhoods in and clear some blockers out of the way and potentially get in. Like it gives you another avenue to, you still get to satisfy that need to have another Wrath in your deck, but it's not whereas like a Supreme Verdict in similar spots to what I just described would not be great, as it would kill your creatures as well.
Right, especially when I'm playing a more board focused deck, being able to Wrath to deal with what my opponent's doing and not entirely wipe out what I've contributed to the board. It's just a little edge up.
It will also kill your own true name nemesis, which I think is very funny.
Well, listen, sometimes you gotta kill your own true name to make it fair for your opponent.
The Brotherhood truly has ended. I said the thing.
You've got a Lorien revealed in here. Are you playing Mystic Sanctuary?
I am.
Yes. Okay. So that's a sweet little combo. Lorien revealed also just like, a 5-mana Ancestral Recall. And sometimes
there it is. I knew you were gonna say it.
Sometimes that is really, really good.
Yeah.
If you have 5 mana, you don't need more lands. Just draw the cards.
Yeah.
There's also Git Probe, which I think we've talked about in the past, and again, like just having perfect information for Jeskai, so important. I've been told not to tell you what's in my hand.
There's nothing you could do about it if he plays a Gitaxian Probe. So
yeah, exactly. Then I just get to relax.
Concede.
Concede in response to the Git Probe. I have shame scooped in casual games. When they go to Thoughtseize me, I just go, oh, cool. Go to game 2.
In addition to the Gitaxian Probe, there is a Ponder, a Preordained Serum Vision, Sleight of Hand, and an Expressive Iteration. And then, of course, you've got Ancestral Recall at home. It's Treasure Cruise.
Can we say 4th Aerolingus?
We did not mention the 4th Aerolingus.
I have not gotten to 4th Aerolingus yet.
We are going to hit all of my points right in the sorceries.
My sorceries.
It's a Treasure Cruise. It's Ancestral Recall. Sometimes you can get 2 casts out of it in a game. That's probably all you need.
How hard is it to hit the 7 on it? Like,
it's not hard.
No. It's the first time pretty easy. The second time difficult, especially.
Are you playing
Flage?
Are you playing Thought Scour and
No.
You're not playing Thought Scour and what is the other one called? Mental Note?
Yeah, no.
Okay.
There's an argument for it. A perfectly respectful thing to do, but I need my cantrips to give me some kind of card selection rather than just putting cards in the bin.
Sure.
That's more for you than for a deck like this, I think. Just like replacing itself and not. I think Git Probe is the one exception of like it just replaces itself.
Right.
0 mana is way less than 1.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah, it's more than just a cantrip.
Yeah.
All right, and last 2 sorceries that are in here are both pointed cards. Of course, we have this 4th Aerolingus right here, which has just become like so powerful in these Jeskai decks that it earned itself a point last year. Or was that earlier this year?
It was earlier. It was January.
Yeah, earlier this year earned itself a point. It is an insane fireball that also gives you the Monarch if your creatures connect. Sweet thing about 4th Aerolingus is it's a sorcery, so all of these cards that flash back or get you cards back out of your graveyard, like Snapcaster Mage and Mystic Sanctuary, can get this card back and cast it over and over and over again. Card is insane.
Yeah. If you're having the best day of your life, your Comet can get you back a 4th Aerolingus.
Yeah, that is literally the best day of your life.
Better lucky than good, I believe.
Exactly.
Yep.
Last, certainly not least, is this Time Walk, the namesake card of the deck. Again, playing this fairly, you're just looking to commit some stuff to the board and then use a Time Walk to, take away a turn from your opponent. Hopefully kill them. How many times did you win the game on a Time Walk turn where you would not have won the game otherwise?
I can think of only like 2 matches.
Okay.
over the couple tournaments that I've played this deck, where the time walks actually let me seal the deal. It's also it's I'm playing it for fair reasons. Sometimes I just want a card that this you can think of it like a copy of Explore that also lets you untap all your lands and creatures.
So you're saying that you could play 2 Explorers?
You can play 2 Explorers. Through my secret technique.
Onto the instance.
On to the instance. That's right. Of course, you've got this Brainstorm in here. I don't know. Do we need to talk about this card?
Flips Tameo good.
It sure does.
Flips Tameo even if you don't want it to.
Better cut it. Don't play it.
Other cantrips you've got are Consider. You have an Opt, and is that it? That looks like it's about it.
Do you not have a Consider? Consider 2.
Yeah.
Consider Opt. That's it for instant speed.
Nice. On to the premium removal. Of course, you have this Galvanic Discharge, which is a new card from Modern Horizons 3 that became a very important role player in the modern version of the Jeskai control deck. You've also got this Path to Exile, a Swords to Plowshares, and an Unholy Heat.
Lightning Bolt. Lightning Bolt.
You've also got some 1-mana counter magic in here with Mental Misstep, Spell Pierce, and I don't know, is Stifle a counter spell? It sort of is.
Yeah, Stifle's a counter spell.
I hate it.
It
It's a hate
shuts
crime.
down whatever your opponent was doing. It's fine.
Yeah.
Sometimes your opponent tries to become the Monarch and you get to stifle that trigger. Then their card doesn't have any checks.
Yeah, that's one of my favorite
great.
things to do with the Stifle. 100%.
Is it? Is it?
It is, yes. On to the 2 drops. You have a bunch of 2-mana counter magic. So let's count these. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 2-mana counter spells. And then also you've got this Lightning Helix hanging out in here. So you are playing Memory Lapse, which is a card that a number of people have cut from their decks for various other things. So Memory Lapse, honestly, it kind of acts like a Time Walk.
Yeah,
It does.
classic tempo counterspell.
Yeah. It's a thing that I wanted to talk about with this deck is they've printed a couple new good counter spells in the last year or so with No More Lies and Reprieve.
Yep.
Which has highlighted a place where I've run into some issues with this deck that I think is interesting. There's a lot of the soft counter spells, the your Memory Lapses, your Reprieves, your Remands, that as they continue to print better and better threats, it's making me want to cut these for maybe more expensive hard counters, because while it is good to, I can put your Minskin Boo back on top of your library, and then it's like I've time walked you, but then you're still going to resolve a Minskin Boo next turn unless I have a hard counter for it.
Sure.
And
You would have rather just had the hard counter in the first place.
Yeah. I find that especially in our meta, unless you are very aggressive on the board, it's hard to capitalize on the more tempo-y counter spells.
Yeah.
It's sort of the issue is just mana cost or mana cost for those counters, right? Because those hard counters go up to like 3 right away.
Yeah, they go up to 3, or you have to find weird things to let them cost 2. Like I gotta
have an
an
artifact in play or something.
Right.
There is a 2-mana counterspell that you're not playing that a lot of Jeskai decks do play, and it does counter Minskin Boo, and that's Dovin's Veto.
It only hits non-creatures.
It counters Minskin Boo.
It does counter Minskin Boo. It does not counter a White Plume Adventurer. And there are plenty of decks in this format that are I'm just gonna cast a Tarmogoyf, and that kills me very quickly.
It does. It does. You're right.
It's a deck building philosophy that I understand is not always correct. I really dislike having dead cards in my hand.
Sure.
Yeah.
So if
there's just so much meta consideration.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And if it's going to be narrow, I need it to be very, very efficient.
And also, you are playing less 2-mana counterspells than a lot of Jeskai decks are, and that's another thing where you're making this concession to try to play more threats, and so something has to give.
Yeah.
And you're effectively playing the best 2-mana counterspells. Because Dovin's Veto actually does not hit very high on my list if I were to rank them, from 1 to 10 or whatever. Dovin's Veto is probably in 9 somewhere. So I'm honestly not surprised that you have cut it from your deck here. So let's move on to the 3 drops. You have a super spicy one here from Modern Horizons 3, and that is Brain Surge.
Ooh.
Love me some card advantage.
Yeah, this card, it certainly does draw a ton of cards.
It does. It has. I think this card probably took more time during the tournaments that I've played with it than any other in my deck, where I cast it and then I have to think for like 3 minutes to figure out what cards I'm putting back on top of my library, because I've got 4 new pieces of information.
Yeah, that is a ton of information to take in at one time.
It's
the
powerful.
2 mana, the extra 2 mana, that's worth it, right? To see an extra card.
Yeah.
You also get to keep an extra card.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It turns Brainstorm, which is just a cantrip, into an actual draw spell, and sometimes you gotta dig real deep for a specific answer, and this is one of the best ways to do that. So yeah, absolutely worth the extra 2.
Yeah,
one more to find that fetch land.
I've been thinking about playing this card a lot too, and I might still try it out. I haven't done it yet, but the card seems very, very good. And of course, the fact that it's an instant just makes me makes me care even less about the fact that it's 3 mana. Up next is Flame of Anor. How many wizards do you have in your deck, Jake?
Ooh, off the top of my head, I want to say 8.
Yeah, so if we look down here, wizards, there are 6.
6.
Okay, I was close.
But obviously the best play pattern is Snapcaster Flame of Anor, right?
I'm pretty partial to Dreadhorde Arcanist into Flame of Anor.
How do you
just?
Tamio is a wizard as well. That's
yeah.
Just cast a Dreadhorde Arcanist. Next turn, get to do Flame of Anor stuff. I don't know. Maybe I'll put some counters on it from the Forge and get to
there you
recast
go.
It.
Oh, that's gross. Have you gotten to do that?
Yes, I've done that in one game.
It already has
good.
trample, baby.
Oh, that's so sick.
A 3/5 trample Dreadhorde Arcanist that's just flashing back your Fire Ices. Yeah. I guess Fire Ice is a 4, so you can't do that.
No, you get back Flame of Anor because Dreadhorde Arcanist is a wizard.
Get Flame.
Lightning Helix.
You've got
Brotherhood End.
You've got a couple of free counter spells in here: Force of Negation and Force of Will, of course. I guess you had the Daze earlier as well, and then you've got another new spicy card from Modern Horizons 3, and that's Invert Polarity. You and Luke were both playing this card in the top 8, and I had it cast against me once. I believe it was when I was playing it against Luke. He tried to hijack my Comet. Glad that Tails came up on his coin flip, but still, 3 mana hard counter. You had mentioned how you were thinking about cutting some of those more tempo-y counter spells for more stuff, and I got to think that stuff like Invert Polarity is what you were talking about.
Yeah. I mean, Invert Polarity is just an insane magic card, especially in a threat-heavy format like ours, where I don't care if that just gets countered. That's fine, and then sometimes I get to take your Comet and
or your One Ring.
Yeah.
Like it's got to be the best 3 mana counterspell, right? Like
the mana cost is a little hard, but if you're in a deck that can reliably cast it, then absolutely.
I can't think of another 3 mana counterspell, and I'm not counting Force of Negation.
The one downside is if your opponent is going to Wrath you, then you really need to win that flip one specific way.
Oh yeah. But you can also if you can invert polarity on an uncounterable card and take it, like you can invert polarity on a Thrun, and if you win you get Thrun, and if you lose you get nothing.
Yep.
So it's an awesome all or in moment.
It is fun to gamble a little bit.
The last instant in here is Fire Ice.
Yep.
So you've got Yeah, classic Jeskai staple. You've got a couple of enchantments in Dress Down and Fable the Mirror Breaker, and Dress Down functions a lot like a counterspell slash stifle, sort of, depending on what you're playing it against. It also just cycles really, really well. And then it also has the added upside of killing 0/0 creatures like constructs,
Yeah.
which is a motivate that I honestly I feel like that's when it's at its most powerful, is when you're playing against those Urza Saga decks that that are making constructs. And I really like Dress Down.
Yeah, Dress Down Flage is pretty cool.
Yeah. Yes. Yep. Curving Dress Down on the instep into main phase Flage. Sure, you don't get that Lightning Helix on the way down, but you do get to keep the 6/6. And if your opponent can't,
seems okay.
Yeah, if your opponent can't kill it right away, that's probably GG.
Yeah, especially in with people trying to play Nadu combo.
Yep.
Where there's just even more creature combo stuff going on than usual. Couldn't imagine living up this deck without a Dress Down in it.
100%. Fable of the Mirror Breaker, however, is not a card you see super frequently in these, Jeskai decks.
It does a few things that I really like. I have, I'm not super heavy on the Delirium package. I do have the Dreadhorde Arcanist and an Unholy Heat, so I've got a couple things that care about it. So getting just one more card type in the deck is valuable to me.
Sure.
And just I've said it before, and I will say it at least one more time before we're done here. Got to eke out that card advantage wherever I can get it, and this card just it's 2 pieces of cardboard, and also I get to cast a Faithless Looting. Kind of
100%.
Favorite card.
So.
All right.
It's sort of like the other Satya, right? Like when you have this many creatures that all have ETBs, you're like, okay, well I can also, you get that advantage there on the back end.
Yeah, Fable is another card that when played early and not dealt with immediately, it can take over the game very quickly.
Yeah.
So we're going to move on to the lands now. You are playing 33 of them, and typically we don't spend a ton of time in the lands section for these decks, but I feel like the lands in Jeskai matter a whole lot. And I'm not going to start at the top. I want to start right here with this card that used to be a point, and that is Library of Alexandria.
It's really good. It's a land that comes in untapped, adds mana, and also draws you 12 cards in a game sometimes.
So at the Cedar Rapids tournament, our game 2 of the semifinals, you probably drew 8 cards off of a Library Alexandria in that. You played it on turn 1 on the play, and it just kept drawing a card every turn for the rest of the game.
Yep. Yeah. It just a lot of times, without recall in your deck, it's hard to get that library active later in the game.
Yep.
Because you just have so few ways to actually go up on cards.
Yeah.
It still makes mana though.
But it
in those games, it's a land. So yeah.
Can I just say how much umbrage I take with the fact that card gets to produce mana, but Bazaar Baghdad doesn't? I get so frustrated with that because, like, obviously degenerate dredge player, but like the fact that you guys get your just dumb card advantage engine.
Bazaar draws 2 cards, and you don't have to have 7 cards in your hand.
Why would I want to?
You're going to play Bazaar in decks with like green mana or black mana, so you can play an Urborg or a Yavimaya, whereas we're in Jeskai, so we don't get cool cards like that.
Yeah.
You can also play Urborg or Jeskai or Yavimaya. I'll allow it.
Okay, so Library of Alexandria is very sweet, and that card used to be pointed, which is nuts. We already talked about Mystic Sanctuary a little bit. Mystic Sanctuary, of course, can be found off of any of those fetch lands, as well as the Lorien Revealed, and put the Time Walk on the top of your deck. But also, it can just get whatever card in your graveyard is most powerful at any given moment. So, it is effectively a tutor card for games that go very, very long.
Yeah, Mystic Sanctuary. You're in a heavy blue deck. There's no reason not to include it.
You are playing. Sorry, go ahead.
I was going to ask, how many of the surveil lands are you on?
So this is one of the biggest things that I want to change about the deck going forward. I am on 2 surveil lands. I am playing both of the blue ones. I am not on the red white one.
Uh-huh.
Sounds familiar. Go on.
That is, my thought on it going in was I want to make sure that I have blue mana because that's the core color of the deck.
Mm-hmm.
But when you get late into a game, and this is a deck that wants to go later into the game, if you've already fetched your 2 blue surveil lands, then some of your fetches just become so much worse to draw than the other ones because any blue fetch can go get you that Mystic Sanctuary. And I think including that 3rd surveil land is just going to turn all of your non-blue fetches into a way to generate some value later in the game, which is just so valuable. I'm considering cutting the Triome for that 3rd land.
There it is.
Yeah. Moving on, you are playing Wasteland, which is something that you see pretty frequently in Jeskai decks, but not all of them play them.
So this is also a thing that anyone around has probably heard me go off about. People play way too greedy of mana bases in this format. And I think they need to be punished for it.
Hell yeah, brother.
You will not see me sleeve up a deck without a Wasteland in it because, if you're gonna rock up with a 4-color deck and you're gonna fetch a Triumph on turn 1, sure, yeah. Let's see how good that hand you kept actually is.
Of course, you have some of the channel lands. You've got Ardawara, and I'm actually curious about this one. Aganjo, Seat of the Empire. I have been playing this card in Jeskai, and I like this card a lot. How has it been performing for you?
I also like it an awful lot. There are a couple things about it that just are that push it over the edge. 4 damage, huge.
4 damage is incredibly huge.
Cannot be countered.
Yes, and that is the other one. Is anytime someone's playing counter magic, they're gonna feel very safe attacking with their creature, and just having a way to get around that. It just
especially attacking with something like Seasoned Dungeoneer, where it has 4 toughness, and they're like, okay, well, just get in with this and take the initiative back, and then you get to go, you fool, you fell for my trap.
Yep. You are playing a Caracas, of course.
Of course.
Then you have got, let's see here. You are playing the 2 blue fast lands. That is Seacombe Coast and Spire Bluff Canal. Are you playing all 10 fetch lands you can? Do you have the Prismatic Vista?
Yes, I do.
And then how many basics do you have? You have 3 islands, a plains, and
one mountain.
1 mountain, so 5 basic.
Yep,
I
just
like
running
that.
with 5 basics.
Would you say that's greedy though?
Only having 5 basics, honestly, kind of.
Yeah.
5 basics
am
on the lower side, I
I'm
think.
considering going up. Okay, this is gonna sound insane, so you're gonna have to bear with me.
No.
I'm considering going up an extra mountain and plains and playing Harbinger of the Seas.
Sure.
Or is that the name of the new?
It is.
Yeah.
It's
Mages of the Moon.
Mages of the Moon. Yeah.
Because I can fetch correctly to not die to a price of progress, and if other people are not going to be worried about that, sometimes I can just get them. And,
I know exactly what you mean. That is it for the deck. Let's bring this back up here so everybody at home can see our faces. There we are. We're back. So, Jake, what is your favorite card in this deck?
It's hard to pick, but I think it might be Triumph of St. Catherine.
Ooh, yeah.
Sure.
And I think it's the green mage in me where I want to pay 2 mana and get a 5/5.
Get a 5/5, yeah.
You want a Worldly Tutor for this?
The Timmy's
I want a
Jeskai
Worldly
card. Yeah. So every deck has its weaknesses. What do you think this deck's biggest weaknesses are?
So, I think this deck honestly struggles against the other like slower control-y decks in the format.
Sure.
Like my biggest nightmare is going up against like a check pile or another Jeskai deck that's on recall, because I know that they are going to have threats on the same like quality level as me,
Yep.
and they're going to have their own counter spells and their own removal to deal with my threats, and they are going to be better equipped to go into the long game because they've got a recall
Yeah.
in their deck.
Their deck is like a little bit
Sure.
leaner than yours, and it's all because of that recall.
Right. Yeah. It just if we sit down and if I draw my time walk and they don't draw their recall, feeling pretty good. If they draw their recall and I don't draw my time walk, no chance. I'm
Are
done.
you saying that points are important?
What
in
if
that
you
measure?
what if you draw your time walk and they draw their recall? What then?
They're gonna counter my time walk and I'm gonna
Oh my
lose
God.
anyway.
What if
No!
nobody draws either one of those cards? How about then?
Then I think I win that game handily because I've got better creatures and
more of them.
they have drawn no way to find their recall, which means their game plan has completely gone off the rails. So,
Perfect. So
They are running what is it, Merchant Scroll now for free. So they got that, baby.
yeah, I can counter a Merchant Scroll. That one's fine. You want
what
to try and flashback a Merchant Scroll? I'll counter it again. That's okay.
what are your deck's biggest strengths, you think?
I think the deck's biggest strengths are just the sheer density of how good these cards are. Like I am just playing all of the best threats. I am playing all of the best removal. I am playing free counter spells.
Yeah.
Like
It is a bit
It-
it is a little bit of a magical Christmas land, huh?
yeah, it just a thing we were talking about. I think this was in the green room. Just there are games where I sit down and my opponent is going to feel like nothing they did mattered because
Yeah.
I've just got removal spells and I've got counter spells for the stuff I can't remove, and my creatures are going to kill you.
Can confirm. I believe our match is on camera.
So earlier you had mentioned that you were thinking about cutting some of the more tempo-oriented counter spells and playing more hard counter magic. I'm curious because I have had similar thoughts, similar conclusions, not necessarily the same thoughts, but I've had similar conclusions. What are some of the cards you would consider adding to the deck?
Oh, the first one that comes to mind is Dissipate. Just
Sure.
a cancel that exiles, because I want to counter a thing and have it gone forever. I feel like decks are very good at using the graveyard in our format, so just finding a way to get a little bit of extra, or prevent them from getting a little bit of extra value from their spell,
Sure.
is important to me. I've also been thinking about adding a Pyroglyph to the deck. just
Oh,
because
okay. That's not a counter spell, but sure.
Another, it's not a counter spell, but it's kind of a counter spell.
Copying a Pyroglyph has got to feel good.
Yeah.
Oh, it'd be pretty sweet with the Satya.
Yeah.
Or the Fable.
Okay, so
Yeah.
hold on. Let's go back to the other
Okay,
counter magic,
sorry.
because, like I said, this is a conclusion that I have also come to, and again through different means, but still,
Yeah.
more hard counter magic as opposed to soft counter magic.
Yeah.
And the two that I thought of were Absorb, the 3-mana cancel that gains 3 life, and also Disallow, the 3-mana cancel that's also a stifle.
Okay. Yeah. Those are probably a little bit better than Dissipate, but I'm gonna stick with my answer.
That's totally
no,
fine.
I
I was
think-
just
I think
trying to
those
give you
are-
more ideas.
Well, you can't be telling me to put good cards in my deck.
It is
Okay.
bad, Jeskai.
I digress. I'm super, super sorry. Okay. Anything else? Have you considered any other point spreads or changes that you might make to the current spread?
Yeah, I I think for the next tournament that I'm able to make it out to, I'm gonna try Mystical Tutor over uh,
Spellseeker.
the Spellseeker.
Sure.
Just getting to play at instant speed is pretty good, and I think the deck has maybe enough ways to get card advantage that I can go down one on my tutor. Um, it also that lets me play around with if I want to include a Terminus in my deck, I have the option to.
Sure.
So
I think miracle spells in general are pretty rad.
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah. Big fan of Terminus. All right. Sweet. Anything else you want to say before we wrap this up, Jake?
No, I think I'm good.
Excellent. Well, so we are just, when this video comes out, we'll be just 1 week away from the Knicks Lawnlander qualifier. So, yeah, that's right. We are recorded very, very far in advance. So, yeah,
Excellent.
this video does not come out until the middle of September. So, yeah, I believe next week we'll be talking about the last LCQ of the year. So,
Oh my gosh.
Jake, I want to thank you for coming on the podcast today, and congratulations. You've had some pretty solid runs this year with this deck, and I look forward to seeing what happens at that last Lawnlander qualifier. For everybody at home, if you like what you're seeing here, please subscribe to the channel. Make sure you turn those notifications on so that we get to annoy you every time we upload a video. And with that out of the way, we just want to remind you that we're proud of you.
We're proud of you.
We're proud of you.
Yeah.
Bye.